You burned through $250,000 trying to build the next big fintech app. And when it failed, you thought you were done. But what happened next shocked even the investors. They funded you again, with double the money.
Why?
Because while other founders were pitching theory, you had already paid the tuition of failure. And in a market where Klarna laid off thousands, and even Stripe tightened belts, they needed someone who'd already been punched in the mouth, and stood back up. This is not a story about success. It's a story about the cost of learning fast, and the secret upside of failing loud. You didn't grow up wanting to build a fintech startup. You just wanted to stop feeling broke all the time. Every time you checked your bank account, it felt like the numbers were mocking you. The balance went up on payday, and vanished just as fast.
Rent.
Groceries. Subscriptions you forgot to cancel. That one impulse buy at Target.
Gone.
And it wasn't just you. Your friends, college grads with full-time jobs, were stuck in the same loop. No one taught you money. You learned to hustle, not to grow. So you had an idea. What if you built the app you always needed? Not another spreadsheet. Not some gamified savings gimmick. Something real. Something that turned chaos into clarity. You sketched it in Figma while reheating leftover pizza. Clean dashboard. Friendly language. Track what matters. Nudge when it slips. Coach, not punish. Less mint. More accountability partner. You showed it to your roommate. Then a friend from work. Then a girl you were dating. They all said the same thing. Dude, if this existed, I'd use it. That moment, it flipped a switch. You poured in $40,000 from your savings. Then another $50,000 from friends who believed in your crazy idea. 3 weeks later, an angel investor wired $150,000 after a Zoom call that lasted 17 minutes. He said, "You're not solving budgeting. You're solving emotional shame around money." You were all in. You quit your job. Hired 2 devs. Launched a waitlist. 3,200 people signed up in 30 days. You were coding at 2 a.m. and pitching at 10. Living on ramen and dopamine. Practicing your YC pitch in the shower. Refreshing TechCrunch, just to imagine your face on the homepage. You started believing this was it. Your Acorns but smarter. Your Robin Hood for real life. Your story that would one day start with, "It all began in a one-bedroom apartment." But beneath the hype, small cracks were forming. Your devs looked burned out, but no one wanted to kill the vibe. Early users stopped logging in, but you told yourself it was just a beta thing. You were adding features instead of fixing friction. Chasing growth over listening. You didn't see it yet. You couldn't. You were too deep in the dream. Too busy trying to be that founder, the one who beats the odds, raises the Series A, exits at 9 figures. But building something real? That's not about dreams. It's about surviving what comes next. And what came next cost you everything. You didn't blow it in one big moment. You blew it in dozens of tiny decisions that felt right at the time. The first was hiring fast, not smart. Your lead dev was a friend of a friend. Nice guy. But 3 weeks in, he admitted he'd never shipped a real product before. You kept him anyway. You didn't want conflict. You told yourself, "We'll learn together." The second was building wide, not deep. Instead of solving one clear pain point, you tried to be everything. Budgeting, debt tracking, investing, credit score tools. You thought more features meant more value. It didn't. It just meant more confusion. The third was ignoring feedback. Early testers ghosted after the first week. You assumed it was their problem, not the product. You told yourself, people are just lazy with money. But deep down you knew. You were the one avoiding the truth. What you built didn't work, and you were too proud to admit it. Then came the fourth mistake. You spent like you'd already won. Brand designers. Outsourced animations. A $6,000 press release that landed nowhere. You burned through $40,000 in less than 30 days, and had nothing to show for it. But the fifth, that one cut deep. You kept going, because stopping meant explaining. Because admitting failure felt like confessing weakness. Because everyone on Twitter was crushing it. And your imposter syndrome told you to fake it until the money ran out. So you pushed. And the more you pushed, the faster the floor cracked beneath you. Your devs quit. First one, then the other. Your inbox filled with Stripe churn notifications. Revenue dropped to $17 MRR. Not 17,000. $17. You started waking up with chest pain. Eating ramen didn't feel scrappy anymore. It felt like punishment. You'd stare at your laptop like it owed you an explanation. Every tab was a reminder of a version of you that used to believe. You hovered over your pitch deck, then dragged it to the trash. Like erasing a version of yourself you couldn't face anymore. You stopped calling your parents. What were you supposed to say? That the dream was burning. And you were still the one pouring gasoline? But the worst part wasn't the silence from users or investors. It was the silence inside you. That terrifying stillness when the story you told yourself, "I'm the one who builds," starts sounding like a lie. You didn't run out of money. You ran out of belief. The day the last dev left, you sat in your chair for 6 hours without moving. No Slack. No calls. Just you, a dead repo, and a bank balance that looked like a joke. $482.17. You had started with $250,000. You tried to tell yourself it was just a pivot. That maybe you'd rebuild. Maybe you'd launch smaller. But deep down you knew. This wasn't a pivot. This was a collapse. You didn't launch. You didn't get acquired. You didn't even make enough to cover a second month of AWS. No post-mortem. No dramatic shutdown. Just a slow, silent disappearance, like most startup failures in America. You scrolled through Twitter while eating cereal for dinner. Other founders were flexing screenshots. $100K MRR in 90 days. Just closed $2.4 million pre-seed. Meanwhile, you couldn't buy groceries without maxing out your last credit card. Your inbox had 23 unread emails from your angel investor. You didn't open a single one. What were you going to say? Sorry, I turned your optimism into ash. You stopped giving updates. Friends stopped asking. And you stopped looking in the mirror. Not out of shame, but because you didn't recognize the person staring back. The hoodie. The silence. The dishes. You weren't a founder anymore. You were someone pretending to exist. It wasn't burnout. It was erasure. Then came the moment. It wasn't loud. No tears. No music. Just a Tuesday afternoon, where even breathing felt optional. You closed the laptop, tossed the notebook filled with user flows into the trash, and said the thing you'd been too afraid to say out loud. I failed. And in that moment, something cracked. Not loudly, but just enough. The silence inside you made space. And once the lie was gone, something else could finally begin. That night, you opened a blank document. No logo. No branding. No pitch deck. Just a question. What did I learn that no one else is willing to say out loud? It wasn't how to code. It wasn't how to go viral. It wasn't some growth hack. It was this. Nobody bets on the shiny founder anymore. They bet on the one who's bled and showed up again. And you didn't know it yet. But that broken version of you, the one who had lost everything, that's exactly who they were waiting for. You didn't plan to pitch again. In fact, you swore you wouldn't. You were done with decks. Done with optimism. Done with pretending. But rock bottom has a strange way of simplifying things. You stopped trying to sound impressive, and started trying to sound honest. So when the investor who hadn't heard from you in 4 months finally replied to your last desperate check-in, you didn't sell him a dream. You just told him the truth. You wrote, I burned $250,000 building something no one wanted. I've got nothing left but clarity. And a new idea that's smaller, dumber, and 10x more useful. You didn't expect a response. But 11 minutes later, you got one. I'm listening. So you met. At a coffee shop, not a pitch room. No slides. No vision board. Just napkin math and brutal honesty. You said, "I'm not trying to fix money anymore. I'm trying to fix the moment people lose control of it." You told him about a single use case. Rent reminders with behavioral nudges. Delivered at 3 a.m. when anxiety hits harder than overdraft fees. You showed him the prototype you hacked together in Notion and Twilio. You showed him real text responses from 5 users. No traction. Just friction removed. He leaned back, nodded, and said something that stuck. "Now you sound like someone I can invest in." You were stunned. Not because he believed in the idea, but because he believed in you. After watching you fail publicly, he wired the money the next morning. Less than before, but more than enough. This time, there was no press release. No Figma redesign. No "we're hiring" tweets. Just you, a broken laptop, a prepaid Starbucks card, and a product that actually solved something real. Because this time, you weren't building to impress. You weren't chasing headlines. You were stitching something together, piece by piece, from the wreckage of your first attempt. You were building to repair. Not the world. Not the market. Just the moment someone feels like they're drowning. And you throw them a lifeline instead of a dashboard. And in that simplicity, in that humility, you did the thing no pitch deck ever could. You earned trust. That was the pivot. Not in the product. Not in the model. In you. You didn't start over. You started smaller. No branding agency. No roadmap. No co-founders. Just one idea, one screen, and a very different version of you. You didn't rent a WeWork this time. You worked from your car, parked outside a library for free Wi-Fi. You didn't build features. You built answers to real moments of pain. Your first 5 users were people you knew. A friend laid off from Amazon. A single mom juggling childcare and credit card bills. A barista who Venmo'd rent 2 days late every month. You didn't track metrics. You tracked messages. Every time someone said, "That helped," you wrote down exactly what worked and why. You made it frictionless. No downloads. No logins. Just a text message that asked, "Rent's due in 3 days. Want a plan?" And people said yes. You had no growth team. But word spread. Someone tweeted a screenshot of your message flow. Then someone else blogged about how your system helped them avoid a $35 overdraft fee. Then a YouTuber with 80K subs featured you in a video called "Money Tools That Actually Don't Suck." 1 week later, you hit 1,000 active users. No ads. No launch campaign. Just momentum you didn't have to fake. And when Stripe emailed you that you'd crossed $2,000 in monthly recurring revenue, you didn't celebrate. You cried. In your car. Because this time it was real. You hadn't gone viral. You hadn't raised millions. But you'd finally built something that made a difference. Quietly. And quietly is how you liked it. You didn't feel like a founder this time. You felt like a bridge. A quiet, reliable thing people walked across in the dark, without ever asking who built it. That was the second chance. Not in the product. In the process. You learned how to listen before you launched. You learned how to serve before you scaled. You learned that clarity beats complexity. And that trust, once earned, spreads faster than marketing dollars ever could. People didn't follow you because of hype. They stayed because you were consistent. Because when they needed help at 3 a.m., you didn't give them a blog post. You gave them a button. Because when the rent was due, you showed up like a friend, not a founder. And this time, when someone asked, "So what's your company do?" you didn't recite a mission statement. You said, "We help people stay calm when their money wants to panic." And that line, that simple, quiet truth, got you invited to pitch at an accelerator again. Except this time, you didn't walk in with a deck. You walked in with receipts. You were never supposed to get it right the first time. That's the lie. That's the secret nobody tells you, until it's too late. They show you exits, launches, founders ringing bells. They don't show you bank accounts hitting zero, or group chats that go quiet, or what it feels like to be the one who blew it, in front of people who believed in you. But here's the truth. You're allowed to fail. You're just not allowed to learn nothing from it. You used to think the real risk was wasting time. Now you know the real risk is wasting clarity. Because failure, when done right, is just tuition you paid to never make that same mistake again. That first startup, it taught you to build slow, to test small, to listen early, to solve something real before solving everything else. It taught you that you don't need more features. You need fewer assumptions. It taught you that you don't need to go viral to be valuable. You just need to be useful, consistently. And most of all, it taught you that you're not the product. You're the process. The version of you who burned $250,000 isn't someone to be ashamed of. That version was the down payment for the clarity you carry now. And if you're reading this, watching this, sitting in your own "what now" moment, let me say this as clearly as I can. You didn't fail. You started. The rest, that's just refinement. And if you're willing to learn fast, listen harder, and serve real people, not imaginary personas, you'll get there. You won't need to pitch like everyone else. You'll have receipts.